Thinking about dropping $100,000 on a brand new luxury car? Pause for a second. 20 years ago, some luxury machines were built so brutally well that the only real way to kill them was to crash them yourself. These cars didn't just age well, they resisted time. Buckle up, because here are 7 old luxury legends that simply refuse to die. Number 7. Acura RL. Did you know Acura once built a luxury sedan so over-engineered it felt like a durability experiment? A test to see who would quit first, the driver or the car? That car was the first-generation Acura RL. When it launched in 1996, Acura made a bold and confusing move. They retired the legendary legend name, one of the coolest badges ever, and replaced it with 2 plain letters, RL. People were baffled. What did RL even mean? Acura said it stood for refined luxury, but it might as well have meant really lasting, because this car was built as if it were meant to be passed down through generations. Under the hood sat the 3.5-liter V6 known as the C35A, part of Honda's legendary V6 family that powered everything from the Acura Legend to the NSX supercar. This wasn't a cost-cutting engine. It featured forged internals, a reinforced block, and incredibly tight tolerances, the kind of precision you'd expect from watchmakers, not car engineers. Power figures were modest by design, 210 horsepower and 224 lb-ft of torque. But that was intentional. Honda deliberately ran this engine far below its limits. The payoff? Owners regularly report these engines cruising past 300,000 miles with nothing more than basic maintenance. Some have even crossed 400,000 miles on the original engine and transmission. The 4-speed automatic transmission was butter smooth, shifting so seamlessly it almost felt smug about it. The chassis was incredibly rigid, thanks to a double wishbone suspension setup at all 4 corners. A configuration usually reserved for sports cars. Even decades later, these cars still feel tight, composed, and solid. No rattles, no squeaks, just quiet confidence. The suspension setup was pure overkill in the best possible way. Double wishbone suspension doesn't just improve handling, it distributes stress more evenly, meaning components wear out more slowly over time. Honda essentially built this car like it was meant to race endurance events, but wrapped it in leather. Inside, the design may feel dated today, but the build quality remains exceptional. Every panel fits perfectly. Every stitch feels intentional. The materials were chosen to last, not impress for a lease cycle. Even better, the controls were logical, intuitive, and easy to use, a refreshing contrast to today's touchscreen overloaded luxury cabins. Number 6. Jaguar XJ Super V8 X350. When was the last time you saw a Jaguar that didn't leak oil like a newborn baby? Exactly. That's why the Jaguar XJ Super V8 deserves special attention. This wasn't your grandfather's unreliable British cruiser. The XJ Super V8 represented Jaguar at its absolute peak. Introduced as part of the X350 generation in 2004, it shocked the automotive world by becoming the first mass-produced luxury sedan to feature a fully bonded and riveted all-aluminum monocoque chassis and body. That single decision made it nearly 800 pounds lighter than rivals like the Mercedes-Benz S-Class and BMW 7 Series. And Jaguar didn't stop there. They took the supercharged 4.2-liter V8 from the XJR, producing 400 horsepower and 408 lb-ft of torque, and dropped it into their longest, most luxurious XJ body. The result was absurd in the best way possible. Imagine strapping a jet engine to a leather sofa. The power delivery was smooth, relentless, and effortless. It didn't scream for attention. It simply moved, fast and gracefully, like a proper British aristocrat with a dark side. 0 to 60 came up in around 5 seconds, and it did it with that unmistakable Jaguar growl. Not a loud, obnoxious roar, but more like an aristocrat politely clearing his throat right before unleashing chaos. But speed was only part of the story. This Jaguar was properly refined. Step inside, and it feels like a high-end cigar lounge that somehow learned how to sprint. Real wood trim, hand-stitched leather, analog gauges. Enough chrome to embarrass a Vegas casino. The seats were softer than your grandmother's forgiveness, and the rear legroom was generous enough to host a small garden party. This wasn't a sports sedan, it was a rolling embassy. And here's the real shocker, the XJ Super V8 was actually reliable. Yes, a reliable Jaguar. The aluminum body didn't rust. The electronics didn't have constant nervous breakdowns. The drivetrain was genuinely solid. The ZF 6-speed automatic shifted like melted butter on glass, and the AJV-8 engine could easily cross 200,000 miles with basic maintenance. Something nobody thought a Jaguar could do back then. Back in 2006, this car cost around $95,000. Real Mercedes S-Class and BMW 7 Series money. But unlike its rivals, the Super V8 didn't shout about status. It simply glided past traffic with quiet, effortless superiority. Number 5. Volvo. 960 people say Volvos were built like tanks. But the Volvo 960 wasn't a tank. It was the reason tanks started feeling insecure. You could hit a brick wall in this thing, and the wall would need therapy afterward. When the Volvo 960 arrived in 1990, it had one mission: make the old 760 look less like a rolling brick. Volvo decided to keep the legendary durability but add leather seats, airbags, and a touch of sophistication. In the process, they created the last of Volvo's rear-wheel drive sedans, and one of their toughest cars ever. The 960 didn't care about being fast or flashy. It cared about lasting. The chassis was strong enough to lift a small house. The suspension laughed at potholes. And the doors, those doors, closed with a heavy, satisfying clunk that basically said, "I've survived 3 owners, 2 divorces, and a moose." Under the hood, Volvo gave buyers a simple choice: reliability or slightly more reliability. Early models used the B280 V6 carried over from the 760, but the real legend was the B6304 inline 6. This silky 3-liter straight 6 idled like a Swiss watch and ran forever as long as you remembered oil existed. It was one of Volvo's first all-aluminum engines and perfectly balanced refinement with indestructibility. Even the later 2.5-liter version carried the same "I will outlive you" energy. Inside, it was pure Swedish comfort therapy. Soft leather everywhere. Real walnut wood trim. Seats so supportive you'd swear Volvo hired orthopedic surgeons to design them. Most models came with power adjustments, seat heaters, and classic Volvo ergonomics. Everything exactly where your hand expected it to be. Safety, of course, was non-negotiable. The 960 packed features that were futuristic for the early 90s: dual airbags, ABS, Volvo's side impact protection system, and even integrated child booster seats, because Swedes don't negotiate with safety. The 960 wasn't trying to be luxurious, it simply was. Number 4. Lexus LS 430. Did you know the 3rd generation Lexus LS 430 is widely considered one of the greatest affordable luxury sedans ever made? Once you understand why, it makes perfect sense. Launched for the 2001 model year, the LS 430 was Lexus calmly telling Germany, "Step aside. We'll show you how luxury should age." This was the 3rd generation LS, the point where Lexus stopped competing and started experimenting. The LS 400 had already terrified the Germans by being smoother, quieter, and more reliable, so Lexus pushed even further. The result was the LS 430, redesigned from the ground up and remembered by many as the moment Lexus truly peaked. The 430 came from its new 4.3-liter V8, the legendary 3 UZ-Fe engine. This thing wasn't just reliable, it was biblical. Owners regularly report 300,000 to 400,000 miles with zero drama. It produced around 290 horsepower, delivered through a 5-speed automatic so smooth you barely knew it was shifting. Later models even received a 6-speed, somehow making it even better. Luxury-wise, this car was ridiculous. You didn't sit in an LS 430, you descended into it. The seats were so comfortable that they made your couch at home feel like a betrayal. Every surface was wrapped in leather, wood, or quiet confidence. And because Lexus was deep in its quiet flex era, you got technology that felt futuristic, air suspension that made potholes feel theoretical, soft closed doors, laser-guided adaptive cruise control, solar sensing multi-zone climate control, oscillating dashboard vents, and yes, even an optional refrigerator. You'd expect this level of luxury to come with constant breakdowns. But not here. The LS 430 wasn't a repair nightmare. It was built with obsessive precision. Every nut, every switch, every piece of trim engineered to last decades. Even better, it improved throughout its lifespan. The 2004 facelift sharpened the design, added radar cruise control, knee airbags, and a new 6-speed automatic that still shifts smoother than most modern 8 speeds. Before we reveal the final three legends, don't forget to leave a like and let us know which old luxury car impressed you the most so far. Number 3. BMW 5 Series E39. Imagine building a luxury sedan so perfectly engineered that even the manufacturer quietly admits, yeah, we're probably not topping this. That car is the BMW 5 Series E39, a machine so good that many still call it peak BMW. Road and Track named it one of the greatest luxury sports sedans of all time. What car? Called it one of the best vehicles they had ever tested. Haggerty's advice to buyers is simple. It doesn't matter which E39 you choose, you win either way. So how did BMW pull this off?
Picture BMW in the late 1990s. The engineers were riding high on the success of the E36 and E34. Confidence was sky high, budgets were generous.
And someone in Munich probably said, let's build the car that makes BMW legendary again. What followed was half arrogance, half genius, and all precision. The secret weapon? Aluminum, lots of it. The front subframe, control arms, and thrust arms were all made from lightweight alloy to reduce unsprung mass. Translation: the wheels glide over bumps instead of punching the driver in the spine. Even with 25-year-old suspension components, an E39 still feels tighter than many brand-new cars today. The chassis was one of the first to be fully computer-modeled, resulting in rigidity so impressive it left rival engineers scratching their heads. Then came the engines. The inline-six models, the 525i, 528i, and 530i, ran the legendary M52 and M54 engines, so smooth you could forget the car was even running. Step up to the 540i, and you've got a 4.4-liter V8 that turned your morning commute into a spiritual experience. And if sanity wasn't your thing, there was the M5, a naturally aspirated 400-horsepower masterpiece that screamed to 7,000 revolutions per minute and sounded like angels starting a street race. Inside, the E39 nailed what luxury should be: subtle, purposeful, and timeless. Real wood trim, soft leather, red instrument lighting that made night drives feel cinematic. Every control existed for a reason. You didn't sit in an E39, you wore it. Best of all, these cars simply refuse to die. Treat one right and it will outlive your next two daily drivers. There are E39 M5s still running strong past 400,000 miles on original engines with nothing more than regular maintenance. Number 2. Mercedes-Benz W124 E-Class. If cars had life insurance, the Mercedes-Benz W124 would have bankrupted every company on Earth. This thing was engineered so thoroughly that it feels like Mercedes accidentally built a car that would outlive humanity. Officially debuting in 1984 after nearly 8 years of development, the W124 looked elegant, restrained, and intentionally unflashy. Italian designer Bruno Sacco gave it a boxy yet muscular stance that aged gracefully, but underneath, it was pure engineering insanity. Mercedes packed it with high-strength steel, advanced crumple zones, and pioneered a rear multi-link suspension that made other cars feel like shopping carts. Aerodynamics were far ahead of their time, with some versions achieving a drag coefficient of just 0.29, better than many modern sedans, and nearly on par with a Porsche 911. It was also the first Mercedes to offer 4MATIC all-wheel drive, allowing it to conquer slippery roads long before traction control became a buzzword. Inside, Mercedes treated luxury like a life-or-death mission, seats that still feel buttery decades later, wood trim that hasn't warped, buttons that click with the precision of a Swiss watch. Safety was never optional. Airbags, ABS, and side impact protection made the W124 the automotive equivalent of a tank in a tailored suit. Under the hood, the magic continued. Engines ranged from humble 4 cylinders to silky inline 6s, but the diesels became legend. The OM603 and OM606 engines earned reputations for being virtually indestructible, capable of surviving anything short of dynamite. 500,000-mile W12-4s aren't rare, they're expected. And then there was the E500, the Porsche-built monster with flared fenders and a 5-liter V8. It transformed the sensible executive sedan into a German sledgehammer without sacrificing durability. There's even a famous clip of a monster truck crushing a W124 wagon nearly flat. You'd think it was over. Instead, it fires right up, electronics intact. and drives away. Modern cars would have retired on the spot. Number 1. Lexus LS 400. You didn't seriously think we'd make a list of indestructible luxury cars and leave out the Lexus LS 400, did you? That would be automotive suicide. Talking about durable luxury without the LS 400 is like discussing rock music and forgetting the Beatles. It's the late 1980s. Big hair, big shoulder pads. The Berlin Wall is falling. Mercedes-Benz rules the luxury world, relaxed and confident on its leather throne. Then Toyota, yes Toyota, steps in and says, "We're building a luxury car smoother, quieter, and more reliable than anything you've ever made." Everyone laughed. Then the LS 400 launched in 1989. And nobody laughed again. Toyota reportedly spent nearly $1 billion developing the LS 400. A new brand, a new platform, a new engine, over 4,000 engineers, 450 prototypes, and 8 years of obsessive development later, the result was a car that politely told the Germans to sit down. Under the hood sat a 4-liter V8 producing 250 horsepower. Not outrageous, but delivered with absurd smoothness. Thanks to a DOHT 32-valve setup and Toyota's borderline obsessive engineering, the engine felt like it could run forever on optimism alone. Step inside, and it's clear this wasn't just a luxury car, it was a quiet declaration of war. Lexus didn't aim for comfort, they aimed for flawlessness. Quality control bordered on madness. Panel gaps were microscopic. Stitching looked monastic. Nothing squeaked, nothing flexed. It felt like the entire car had been assembled by people who personally feared imperfection. And the best part? It destroyed the Germans quietly, politely, and completely. The LS 400 cost less than an S-Class, ran smoother, and proved far more reliable. 30 years later, these cars still refuse to die. You'll find LS 400s with 500,000 miles that idle smoother than brand new luxury sedans. The only thing that wears out on them is their owners. We hope you enjoyed this video. Here's another one you'll love. As always, thanks for watching.